can pick the stock that's going to make you a bazillionaire. So here's my advice, folks. Take a deep breath, relax. Stop making this so difficult. Really, to build a comfortable future, you need to do well, but you don't need to do spectacularly well. This is where people mess up, because you start, shooting for the fences. It's like back when you played Little League Baseball.
Yeah,
if you swing for the fences, you might hit a home run every once in a while, but more times than not, you strike out.
I had a coach who used to say that. He'd come up to me and say, we don't need a home run here, okay? You need a single, maybe a double. Just hit one in the gap, get it past the shortstop. We don't have to have a home run, because how often have we sat there, swung hard, and missed every single time?
That's right. So if you're fascinated by all this investing stuff and listening to the radio shows and timing the market and all that stuff, take a small portion of your money and play with it that way, and the rest of it, just allocate it and try to make your life simple.
Yeah.
Right? How's that for the good advice of the day?
There are just so many people whose personalities depend on doing that kind of thing. They kind of thrive on that. It's sort of like
they're addicted
the gambler's
to the adrenaline
mentality.
rush.
Yeah, it's the gambler's mentality. We don't like that on this show. All right, 877-PLANNER. And by the way, if you're going to ask us which stock to pick, we're not going to tell you. We don't do that on this show. 877-752-6637. Back to the phones, Ray. Here before the top of the hour, we've got Julie in Dallas.
Yes, Ray, quick question.
Yes.
You've talked a zillion times about the annuitizing 25 to 50% of your income.
Yes.
My question is this. Do you allow, if you have a pension that has no COLA to it, how do you figure that in? Because 25% could become...
Yes,
okay,
absolutely perfect question. It's the right question that you should be asking. Yeah, what you do is, remember, you're going to annuitize a certain percentage of your income. That's going to come from Social Security and a pension and or the purchasing of some kind of a lifetime income stream. Now, you are correct. Most annuities do not provide for an inflation hedge. It's the rest of your portfolio. This is why I say if I annuitize 25% or 50% of my income need, and let's say that uses 25% of my money, I still have the other 75% of my money that I can put in a classic buckets of money strategy and provide inflation adjustments. And that's how you do it. Have you been bucketized as yet?
Yes.
Okay, so when you've bucketized, did you actually show every 3, 4, 5 years how their money should be invested to give you a bump up at, say, 3% per year for inflation?
I think so.
Okay, who bucketized you?
Me.
Okay, well, hopefully you did it correctly. Can you hang on? I'll have Professor Plum take a look at your bucket strategy and give you a report card.
Okay.
All right? Okay, kiddo, thank you for the call. Here's the key here, and I appreciate Julie because she's bringing up a very, very extremely important point, and that is inflation, how little it may be, will erode her purchasing power over time. And therefore, if she needs, where's my calculator? Here it is. If she needs, say, $2,000 a month today, 10 years from today at 3% inflation, she will need $2,687. So if she annuitizes $500 a month out of that $2,000 a month need, that $500 a month is still just $6,000 of annuitized income. Well, she needs $32,000. So the question is, how does she make up for the balance? Does she keep buying annuity every year? Probably not. And so you fill the other buckets with enough money to supplement that annuitized income to give her enough in the way of monthly checks to equal $2,600 in 10 years. And whatever the number needs to be in like 20 years, like $3,600 in 20 years. And then in 30 years, hopefully she's still alive and kicking, and her money needs to be $4,800 a month then. So 26 becomes 36 becomes 48. And if you have assets growing in bucket 3, you can siphon off some of the profits and refill bucket number 2, from which you can spend down in bucket number 1 to make up the difference to give her a guaranteed inflation-adjusted income.
And that's how Buckets works, too, by the way.
It is indeed.
Amazing.
All right, folks, if you have questions about your own buckets, or you want to put your buckets to the test, or become a full-fledged bucketeer, go to the website, go figure, bucketsofmoney.com. For the gang, I'm Ray Lucia.
You're listening to The Ray Lucia Show, the nation's #1 money talk show, offering the best in financial information. The views and opinions expressed by Ray and his guests are not necessarily those of this radio station or its sponsors and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision. Ray and the Brain Trust are available to answer your money questions at 877-PLANNER or at raylucia.com.
XEKL 1700 AM, Ecatec, Baja California.
ESPN Radio 1700, San Diego's home for the Major League Baseball playoffs and the World Series.
You're listening to Mr. Credit on San Diego 1700 with local credit expert Derek Evans. Now, live in studio, Mr. Credit.
Welcome to Mr. Credit. We are live and local here in San Diego, bringing you the most important hour in radio. We're telling you everything they don't want you to know right here on ESPN 1700. Save this station in your dial. We've got all the Major League Baseball action today coming right up immediately after the show. Yankees versus Rangers, 1 o'clock right here on ESPN 1700. And then after that, Giants versus Phillies. Now, the Yankees did not look like the Yankees last night. They look like this team called the Padres. Ever heard of them? That doesn't score any runs and loses feebly and then has no one in the seats. I could not believe by the seventh inning, how few people there were sitting behind home plate when it was packed when the game began. If your fans are giving up and the players are a bunch of prima donnas, good luck winning the next game. Now, actually, I think that the Yankees will put on a good performance today. I think there's a good chance they'll win the game today, but for the series, they have no chance. Giants, Phillies, there's something interesting. Phillies are down. They scored 0 runs. This is a team that hits the cover off the ball every single game, so that ought to be an interesting one. All the action's right here. You don't have to go anywhere, so save the station in your dial. Today we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff that they don't want you to know, and we're going to hit some pretty hard stuff as far as what's going on with the government, because there are a couple of stories out there that are just mind-boggling when you really break it down. Now, some of you are aware of, because you have American Express cards, you've maybe gotten some letters in the mail from American Express, but did you know that the United States is actually filing a lawsuit against American Express? Are you aware that the government has actually filed a lawsuit? Listen to this. The Department of Justice recently filed a lawsuit against Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Their beef? Credit card networks give merchants take-it-or-leave-it terms when they agree to accept credit card payments. Have you been to the little corner shop lately, the little mom-and-pop shop, where they won't take credit cards? Cash only? I don't have any cash. How many times recently have you gone to pay for something and they actually don't accept plastic? This is the reason. Because the merchant has absolutely no choice about the terms for which they can accept these credit cards. They get taxed big time. It's ridiculous.
This is ridiculous.
So, these terms actually prevent the retailers from charging different prices for credit card use versus other forms of payment, meaning that they can't charge you a higher price if you use your credit card. That would be the simple solution, right? Oh, you want to put it on plastic? Well, I have to pay Visa 5%, so I'm going to pass that through to you. It's not even like they're making money on it. They're just passing it through. But the credit card merchants won't allow it because they don't want that dirtying their name. How sad would that be? It would actually be beautiful, if you ask me, because they deserve it. They're the ones charging the fee to the poor little merchants. Is it really worth all that? Well, anyway, the U.S. has filed a suit against them. Now, the interesting thing is that the suit argues this practice is obviously anti-competitive, and if you read between the lines, the Department of Justice believes that this practice is causing artificially high network usage fees because there is such a monopoly amongst the different credit card issuers. I mean, you got Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. Who else you got that's a major player? It's them. Well, MasterCard and Visa quickly settled this suit and amended their rules. Whereas American Express, the worst. American Express is the Experian in the credit card industry. They're the worst. There's nothing worse than American Express when it comes to credit cards. I don't care if you're trying to settle an old balance. I don't care if you're trying to get an erroneous item removed from your credit report. American Express takes the cake. They are the worst, but I've got my eye on them.
I'll be watching you.
Just like I have my eye on everybody else for you, which is why you listen to Mr. Credit right here at noon, weekdays, on ESPN 1700. Now, I'm sick as a dog, and you can probably tell. I have no business hosting a radio show right now, but I'm making it through for you because I need you to know the truth.
I want the truth!
Because they just won't tell you. They make too much money keeping you in the dark. So, MasterCard and Visa quickly settled the suit. American Express is fighting back. And until the Amex suit is reconciled, merchants that accept all three types of cards cannot steer shoppers towards one payment form or another. In other words, if they have got the go-ahead from Visa to charge you an extra 5% if you use your Visa card, since they have to pay 5%, they can't actually do that yet because American Express isn't allowing it. And that would actually that would be considered steering, which is not allowed. So, will this have any impact on your wallet? Well, it will when it finally goes through. The thing that's just so gross about it is that you have part of this network of credit cards have obviously seen that it's insane to think that you could charge a merchant and not allow them to get that money back. I mean, if you're buying, this is why when you go into these little shops, they say, well, we have to charge you 50 cents if you use any kind of card under $5 charge. Because you're eating all their profit margin. I mean, if they have to pay, a flat fee of 50 cents or $1 for every time a card is swiped, think about that. These guys who are selling $2 and $3 items, you go buy bubble gum, it's free. I mean, they get nothing for it. It costs them money to sell it to you. So it's just a crazy thing. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, no matter what they say in their commercials, American Express sucks. And that doesn't just go for the fact that they don't care about the consumer, they don't care about the little guy, they don't care about the merchants. That goes for the fact that if something is wrong, if they make a mistake on your credit report, if they erroneously report a late payment, they are the hardest to work with of all the different credit card issuers, especially when it comes to settling old accounts. Absolute nightmare. They've also been known to do a lot of multiple debt selling. In other words, selling old debts to multiple companies. Seen it a bunch. Now, of course, they'd never admit to that, but it's the truth. So there you have it. That's American Express. We're kicking them to the curb today. Now, remember, the number one thing they don't want you to know is how good Chapter 7 bankruptcy is for you. Now, there's a lot of people out there who've heard these horror stories about bankruptcy. Oh, it's terrible. You hear the word and it sounds bad. This just isn't true. Most people have had bad experiences with what is called a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is a much longer, drawn-out process that most people shouldn't even think about getting involved in unless they've sat down with a very highly qualified bankruptcy attorney, such as William McDonald, with the McDonald Legal Group. Now, he's the person who comes here on the show occasionally. Once a week we try to have him in here so we can help educate you about how this stuff works, because Chapter 7 bankruptcy is really an amazing thing, and let me explain to you why. As Mr. Credit, as someone who has studied the credit scoring model, the actions of the credit bureaus, the actions of the banks, the actions of the government with regard to credit, with regard to consumers, Chapter 7 bankruptcy is the only thing that levels the playing field. That's it. It's the only weapon that we have as consumers to fight back all the high-interest credit card debts that people have, that they can't get out from under, just barely making minimum payments. People are getting second jobs right now just so they can pay the minimum payments on credit cards. If you make minimum payments on credit cards, you almost never get them paid off. I mean, you have to stop using them, make minimum payments for like 30 years. You end up paying a ridiculous amount. Credit score gets crushed because of the high balances that you have, which represents 30% of your credit score, by the way. So when you file for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, this is how it works. And I don't care whether it's because of high credit card debt, collections, medical bills, judgments, wage garnishments, old IRS tax debt, or all of the above. Maybe you're trying to stop a foreclosure. Maybe you've got something else. Maybe you want to try to retain your employment. Remember that? When William McDonald was in here, you can actually retain your employment better if you file for bankruptcy versus if you haven't.